Okay, we are recording and we are live. So, welcome everyone. Welcome to Tribes Conversation. My name is Donny,
And I'm Kirk.
and we're part of Flesh and Spirit Community. Or we facilitate, I should say. We are part of it too. And we're just delighted to have you all here and to welcome our guest, Christopher Love. And this is an ongoing conversation we have with different queer luminaries and thought leaders. And we are just delighted today to have Christopher Love with us. And I'll just tell you a little bit about Christopher.
Yeah, read
For
his bio.
those of you who don't already know Christopher, um, in 1985, Christopher spent 4 years as a participant and group leader with the Reevaluation Counseling Foundation. And in 1993, he received an MA in community counseling from the University of Cincinnati. He served as clinical co-director of Clifton Counseling Center in Cincinnati from 93 to 97. Christopher has facilitated national retreats and served as a group leader with the SF San Francisco AIDS Foundation and with Life Force Educational Corporation. He received Reiki attunements at level 2 in 96, as well as body work and breath work training. Christopher has practiced yoga for over 20 years and holds an advanced 500-hour certification with the National Yoga Alliance. He teaches weekly classes in private instruction. In addition to studio classes, he leads Yoga St. John's and Yoga CCC weekly donation-based experiences featuring live music and meditation. He leads Vipassana meditation and workshops at the Vibe Center and teaches wellness yoga for corporate clients. Christopher also teaches yoga for young minds at Mill Valley Middle School and Del Mar Middle School. Music has always been a joy and blessing to Christopher throughout his life. He studied classical trumpet and voice, as well as Indian, Taizé, and liturgical music. He plays the harmonium and sings devotional songs and bhajans. You can hear him along with other amazing artists at Grace Cathedral, Yoga on the Labyrinth, Yoga St. John's, Yoga CCC, Mythica Foundation events, kirtans, and special events. For over 25 years, Christopher's private counseling practice has supported others to heal. His greatest passion is helping people to open their minds and hearts through compassionate self-inquiry. Wow, that's so much.
It's juicy. And of course, you know, the updated Christopher is now relocated, and many of those things you have just transferred to where you're at. But Christopher, welcome. Yay.
Thank you. Nice to be with you, everyone.
Yay. So as you know, and those of you who are on the call, if you've been on the call before, or we interview thought leaders, queer tribe peoples who are healers and shamans and change agents of all sorts, just to get a glimpse of who are we. And so that's kind of the essence of these calls, like who are we and what are we doing here, and what are we contributing, and just hearing that from different vantage points. So Christopher is our voice for today, and besides just having a long history of loving Christopher, I've been privileged to just see his amazing gifts change the world and change individuals' lives. So we're delighted to have you.
Delighted to be here. Thank you, Kirk and Donny.
Thank you. So our first question, as usual, is just tell us about your spiritual journey, your awakenings. Tell us stories that about that journey that kind of engage us into who you are and what's really at the heart of Christopher Love.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for having me, Kirk and Donny. It's wonderful that you're doing this and that the gay men get to connect in this way and discover who we are as a community and how we're connected. I am in North Carolina now. I was in the Bay Area for over 20 years, and I've moved back to my home state. In telling you about my spiritual journey, I might say that I grew up in an even smaller town that I'm living in now, and that my dad and mother were child development specialists.
Mm. Mm.
I grew up gay with child development specialists in a small town and in a Southern Baptist church. And that should tell you a lot right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, right. Plenty. We can end the call now. Right. So, needless to say, between my father at the university trying to sort of sometimes bring his work home in raising his children, and growing up in a Baptist church 50 years ago, I got a lot of mixed messages about being gay and about being different.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think I put a lot of those feelings, as we all do, in a box for a really long time. But, you know, I was very in touch with this as a child without even knowing what I was doing and who I was yet. I listened to another one of your speakers earlier this week, the one you just had in May. I forget his name, but he talked about being a little boy and organizing boys in the neighborhood to like play around.
Mm-hmm.
I did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest to boys in my neighborhood that we go up to the treehouse and play nasty. Like even then I knew that there was something wrong and dirty and shameful about this, but that I really wanted to do this, right? So, you know, that happened for a while until my dad found out about it. And it was a deeply shaming event for me. One that I lived with for a very long time. The aftermath of that shaming that had happened around that. I did manage to grow up in North Carolina, went to school, went to college, came out in college, and went to Cincinnati right after I graduated college. And it was there that I got some therapy with none other than Kirk Prine. I guess it's okay to tell people that you were my therapist for a while.
Full disclosure, as long as it's from you.
That's fine. You know, Kirk was so sweet to me for so long in Cincinnati and helped me come to terms with who I was. And I will never forget that. And as I had my process in Cincinnati and was really coming to terms with how I felt about my sexuality, I went back to graduate school, got a master's, and full disclosure, Kirk and I used to run Flesh and Spirit in Cincinnati.
Yes.
Flesh and Spirit started, it was Kirk's brainchild, but Flesh and Spirit started in Cincinnati, and we did amazing, wonderful groups with brothers there. It was very special. And just so wonderful to see you still doing this. So, yeah. But, you know, it was in those meetings where I really started to embrace who I was as a very sexual person. I had always been very sexually active. But this feeling of shame that I talked about from my dad really followed me. And it was in Flesh and Spirit that I really kind of declared myself as a sexual healer and a sacred prostitute. And I know those terms must mean something to your community. That when we bring intention to our touch, magic happens. Magic happens for us, but when we open up those channels, magic happens for our partners. And you know, it's a very spiritual thing. So that's kind of where I've come from, and maybe that's enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like part of the using my language, part of the catalyst though to propel you into your spiritual journey actually was your shame.
Yes.
So shame actually revealed itself and made you transformed it into a gift.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow. And anything else about stories of your kind of spiritual awakening? I know you're kind of multifaceted as far as
Yes,
what you channel through. I mean, I've heard you sing and chant as well as do yoga and lead it on the
sure,
labyrinth, and you kind of channel in almost every tradition I know about on the planet.
sure.
But were there kind of awakenings that happened to you besides kind of the wounded part, like, yeah, this is really who I am? So
Yeah. Well, I should talk about the path of yoga
great.
because it's a major part of what I do now. When I discovered yoga in San Francisco, I didn't even know what yoga was.
Mm,
And I was a therapist, of course, and here there was this tradition that honored the body's participation in how we can become more aware. The idea that there was this systematic practice that you could do to reveal what was inside of you,
mm,
that you could learn from. The messages embedded into your body, in this case, the shame, but also the joy,
mm-hmm,
that in addition to all the talk that I had done in therapy, yoga was this amazing way, sort of through the back door, to access those beliefs, feelings, and ideas that were buried in the body.
mm-hmm.
And I thought that was just a wonderful discovery, and I took to it. I just fell in love with yoga. So then, of course, later on, I discovered music. I've always been a musician, but I discovered Indian classical music, bhajan, taizé music, mantra, and chant as sort of a meditative practice. Meditation is something I continue to practice and deeply believe in. And so meditation in all its forms, yoga, singing, right? And
Absolutely.
sex, right?
And sex.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
yeah,
sure,
absolutely. Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, thank you. So you're giving us a little bit of a foundation of who you are. So our next question is always, about the queer tribe. And I love kind of spurring the curiosity about who we are. So, if we came, my shtick is that we came here with a purpose. Not everybody has that language, but that, my shtick for me too is that, I came here actually choosing to be a queer person in this body, and that was the gift that I had to bring. Now, those are all my words. As far as a queer tribe, do you see us as a queer tribe, or how are we a queer tribe if we are one? What makes us a queer tribe, and any of that kind of composite that you want to play with?
Uh-huh. When I was preparing for this interview, I knew you were going to ask me that question, and I thought, tribe.
Yeah, yeah,
I had to chew on that a little bit. I actually looked it up.
yeah,
Like, what does tribe mean?
yeah.
And we are. According to Webster's, we are really. And when I thought about just what we are together and how we appear and how we find each other, we are a tribe of sorts. And I do feel that. Gay men are great at talking about gaydar. And, we play around with this idea that, we're walking around the world and my gaydar goes off and I think there's a queer guy over there. That is a real experience. Every gay person knows what that feels like, to be walking around in the world, kind of passing, maybe, and here is another person, and you just know. You just know that person is queer also. And it just takes a look. It
Yeah.
just takes an eye contact or a recognition, and suddenly, where you were alone in the world before, you're no longer alone.
Mm-hmm.
And, we appear everywhere and throughout time.
Yeah.
And, people have made the observation that if we were not a necessary part of humanity, we would have disappeared some time ago. It's not like we're having necessarily a lot of children. So that used to be true anyway. So, in terms of uh, evolution, if we were not a necessary part of humanity,
Right.
we might have disappeared some time ago. But here we are, and we are here in numbers,
Mm.
steady numbers. And, here we are and we find each other. And I just think that's incredibly powerful, that for so many wounded people, surely I'm not alone in having early experiences that were deeply shaming about who I was and what I was trying to experience and the connections I was trying to form and experiment with. I'm not alone in having that really deeply shamed.
Mhm.
And yet we survived that. And that, as much as that was motivation for me to heal, to become a more wise person and more evolved person, that is true for so many of us.
Yeah.
So our wounds have brought us here, and our wounds bring us together sometimes, and that's just very powerful.
Mhm.
Um, I'll share an experience with you. I was in San Francisco back in January, and I was teaching yoga for a school in Marin. And I was staying with my friend Peter in the city. And Peter's a straight man, but he's been my friend forever, like 18 years. So he and I went out. I convinced him to go out to the Castro. Very brave straight man. And we went to 440 in the Castro, my favorite bar over there. And we start talking to this group of men at a table. And I just flip into like, girlfriend, I'm not the sort of I just let it come out. The girl came out, right?
Uh-huh.
And Peter looked at me like, who is that?
Uh-huh.
Peter's known me all this time, but somehow he didn't know that. He didn't see that.
Mm.
And it was the most delightful thing. This guy and I just like hit it off, and we were joking around and laughing and cutting up and girling it up. And we left the bar, and Peter on the way to the car said, "You were really flirting with that guy." And I'm like, "No, I wasn't. That was just my thing. That's just us. That's just us doing it.
Yeah.
It's us
Yeah.
doing our thing."
Yeah.
And that's how it is when we find each other. It's suddenly safe sometimes to be who we are, and it comes out. And I love those moments. Um, and so I just thought that was interesting. Here my straight friend is saying, "What was that?" Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Um, Another experience,
Yeah.
I'll juxtapose that. Here I am in North Carolina, and just recently, we're in our backyard. We have an enormous backyard, and we're in our backyard talking with our neighbor. I'm standing there with my husband, and she has some workers over in her yard, a whole bunch of them, chopping down a tree or something. And I didn't think about it. I put my arm around my husband, and I just drew him close,
Uh-huh.
and then I'm suddenly aware that all these workers in my neighbor's yard are like looking at us. And I take my arm off my husband's shoulder in my own backyard.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I thought,
Mm.
wow,
Mm.
there's still part of me that self-censors.
Yeah.
So here on the one hand, there's a part of me that just comes alive
Yeah.
when I'm with my gay brothers.
Yes.
And on the other hand, I'm still noticing how I shut down and butch it up, and pass
Yeah.
sort of
Yes.
in the larger community. And that with all the work I've done, that is still happening. And it must still be a thought for all of us
Yeah.
at points.
Yeah.
And that, embracing our tribe is that kind of a process of letting go of being self-conscious and shame and being comfortable with who you are.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Thanks.
yeah.
So if I'm hearing kind of your voice today, it's you know, part of what makes us a tribe is we recognize each other. Part of what makes us a tribe is we have common shame. And part of what makes us a tribe is that when we find each other, it can be safe to return to that joy. So
Yes.
yeah. So those are those are amazing gifts uh, uh, in and of themselves. But let me take a little further. So here we are in the midst of, over 100,000 people dead, with COVID, with uh, systemic racism showing its face massively, and so a lot of people are in pain and shame and grief and suffering, and all you just layer it. I'm wondering, as I ask my question, as a queer tribe, do you see, one, we have a purpose or purposes, and maybe even then moving into my third question, or at least prepping you for it, is what are the contributions that we have to this time? So any of that you want to start chewing on?
Sure. Um, our contributions as gay people to the arts, to aesthetics, to beauty, to creativity, are pretty clear. That's not all we do, but clearly we are gay hairdressers and florists and dancers and artists, queer people that know how to embrace the inner feminine as well as the inner masculine. That is such a gift in this world right now. I have friends nearby in Burlington, a straight couple that I know, and the guy works for a company nearby here in the area, and he was his partner was telling me about how one of his coworkers, a brand new coworker of his, was gay, and that Richard was a little uncomfortable with him because he was so effusive. And I laughed out loud, as if that's a bad thing, right? So, I laughed out loud because, what does effusive mean but expressive, present, engaged, excited,
Sure.
sensitive,
Yeah.
All kinds of beautiful things.
Yeah.
I think we're here to show the world how to embrace all that. And, in making people a little uncomfortable sometimes, they get to face that inner wound of theirs. I think we're here to show people that we have a foot in two worlds, as the Bradash would say, that we are two-spirited. And that challenges people.
Yeah.
It challenges people to think about their own lives and their own roles and how they put their own lives in a box. I think we're here to show people that that's a beautiful thing.
I full circled on your story back to Peter and you, which is you became more effervescent, more expressive. I remember when we were doing psychotherapy stuff, both as psychotherapists, there was a study out about us as gay men, and one of the things that made us different in the study from our straight counterparts were very few things, but one of them was called exuberance, that we were more exuberant. So I'm thinking about you and being your authentic self with Peter, and so you get healed, but I think Peter probably got healed too, because he got
Peter got healed.
the full you, the you that hadn't been fully expressed before. So Yeah.
Right.
How juicy is that? And as a tribe, we do that then, as you're saying, for the world.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. I love this conversation. Yeah. This I'm real fixated on shame healers. We're the shame healers. Yeah. How cool.
Yeah.
So moving into question 3.
Oops,
So,
sorry.
and God must be calling to tell us what the question is. Question 3 is simply, so if we are a queer tribe, what's your vision for us as a movement, as a tribe, um, especially in these times?
Yeah. You know, society has come so far since I grew up in Greenville, North Carolina 50 years ago. Um, Part of what I shared with you is just what it's meant to me to be able to marry my husband.
Mm, mm,
I spent so long being very sexually active
mm-hmm,
and feeling rather driven by it, frankly.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I know a lot of gay men and lesbians can identify with that experience.
mm-hmm,
Um, I'm sure that's not everybody's experience, but for a while, sex really ran my life.
mm-hmm,
It was a very focal point, a big focal point of where I put my energy.
mm-hmm.
And, I branded myself as a sexual healer, so, bring it on kind of thing. Um, I had to realize, even just a few years ago, as I was sexual, I say prior to my husband, really, but as I was being sexual, there was this little background of shame in the back. My dad catching me in the treehouse
Mm-hmm.
was still there.
Mm-hmm.
And, I told myself, no, I've done enough therapy. I'm through all that. I'm all done with that. But I wasn't. And when I found another therapist who said at one point, Christopher, whatever you do or don't do, there are so many of you in the room. There's you as an adult in the room. There's you as a younger man in the room. There's you as an adolescent. And there's you as a little tiny boy in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you bring all of that with you wherever you are. And she said, who's taking care of the little boy? When you go do this, who's listening for him? Who's showing up for him?
Mm-hmm.
Can you be there for all the parts of you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was,
Yeah.
I didn't expect to cry,
Yeah.
but that was incredibly unifying for me.
Yeah.
That very healing to just bring all the parts together. And young gay people have such a different experience, I must think, now. HIV is not the concern that it used to be. We've lost so many people. I think gay people get to come out these days without all the shame all the time necessarily. And yet we are still connected through the experience of being queer.
Yeah.
And whether I talk to a young person or one of my elders, we can still connect around the experience of loving men. And when we allow ourselves to be healed and to be unified,
Yeah.
I think we are so powerful in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of walking around in the world and not being able to be my full self is just unacceptable anymore.
Yeah.
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 And I think we're just given a lot more permission now to stay connected, to to know who we are and to know the power of our connection together. And as long as we know that, then we're different as we walk around in the world. It's a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
And so you're asking, how are we, I think you're asking, what is our vision for our contribution in the world? I think our greatest contribution is still healing ourselves and knowing that, and then being our full and authentic selves as we have our place in the world.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. So we're the shame healers, and we're the authenticity. It's safe to have all your parts and bring them together in wholeness and oneness facilitators, because as we heal ourselves, we can hold spaces for others, even outside of our tribe, for all tribes. Is that kind of what I captured?
It is. And, I'll add one more piece, is that for me, and again, I don't speak to anyone else's experience, but for me, it was incredibly meaningful and necessary that I eventually learn how to be monogamous.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a lot of time spreading my energy around.
Yeah.
And I had a good time. I had a great time. But, I've talked about the pain that was also there. And part of that pain was feeling like I was rather driven and that I didn't have a choice in the matter.
Yeah.
And so it's been tremendously healing for me to be a gay man and devoted.
Sweet.
It's very powerful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Beautiful.
My husband, Sean.
Yeah, your husband, Sean. Yay, we love you, Sean.
How long have you been together with Sean now?
We were counting the other day, about 15 years, I think.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
About the same as Donny and I. Yeah. Wow. Cool. So the other piece that I hear that you bring is we get to listen to our own drumbeat, and we get to in this whole panoply of options of how we express our intention of touch and sex and partnership, we get to choose what's congruent for us, and that's the real gift. So it sounds like you're more gifted now than ever, because you're really being congruent with who you are, and your history led you to that.
Right.
Yummy.
Yeah, I'm blessed.
Yeah, you are. You are way. Yay. And anything else, as far as, before we move on, about just kind of a vision for us as a tribe, a people, a movement, that comes to mind?
I don't know. Maybe as you ask me some questions.
Okay. Yeah. Well, like you, I was thinking, I've spent a lot of time, and Jim and Tulsky wrote an article recently about, you mentioned, so for younger people, HIV is not the same kind of problem as the death threat that it immediately was, as I at least was growing up, and you walked through. But we have a history around knowing and managing and negotiating. I'm positive. I'm not positive. What do we do with that? How do we connect? How do we not connect? How do we make it safe? How do we, find each other and express that man-to-man love with each other? We know a lot about kind of the protocols that are already embedded in us as a tribe, that the rest of the world is now having to all of a sudden deal with in mass. So I'm seeing that kind of a contribution. It's not even conscious. It's not like, oh, well, we planned this. You know, we plan to go through an epidemic to be the forerunners of knowing something so that we could actually bring some softer, more peaceful warrior kind of action to all the events that are happening currently with both COVID and in racism. But that's my shtick. Any other kind of visions for us as a movement that are stirring? If not, it's great. You have like given us a full cup. So
you talked about the negotiation that happens around HIV and safe sex. I did that negotiation for a long time. And as safe as I may have learned how to be with a condom, again, what I had to learn is that what I did to myself was not safe.
yeah,
It was not kind.
yeah,
At times it was, and at other times I was not kind to myself at all. And so, that whole issue of safety, what does that mean?
yeah,
I think we're learning how to be safer with each other on all levels.
yeah.
And
Great.
beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, we want to in a minute open up the lines for any questions, and then maybe if you could have chant with us for a moment, and then plug anything that you want to plug, and we'll close for today. But so. Brothers who are on the line, Christopher's certainly giving a lot to cook with. Do you have questions for him? And you can just raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask. Anybody want to jump in?
Yeah, I have many questions. I'll just make a comment. Donny and Kirk, I haven't seen you since your wedding day.
Yeah, wow.
And I was in sobriety and changed careers and got into and became a therapist in private practice and had a wonderful community in Tampa. And intuitively, I knew it was time to go home to Cincinnati. And my head went, "What in the fuck are you doing?" And but I knew it was right. So a friend said, "This was, why don't you contact a Body Electric friend said, why don't you contact this guy named Kirk and touch base with him," and landed in a private practice with Kirk and Christopher. And it was one of that and being back at the scene of the crime, so to speak, one of the healing things I ever did. Because when I left after 10 years, there was no regrets, and there were pieces of shame that I didn't even know was there. Now, when I see shame, I go, "Oh, isn't that interesting? I didn't know that got triggered."
Yeah.
So, but thank you. I mean, my mind's just going off and on and on and on. But thank you both for what you contributed to my own process and healing before you moved to San Francisco.
Thank you, beloved. Thank you. Anyone else? Comments, stories, questions for Christopher specifically? All right, you must have sated them, or they've got so much cooking that it's like,
That's right.
Where do I ask? Yeah, let's. If you're willing, I would love for you to just kind of bring us into that heart, that connection with some sound and some music for a moment, and then have you plug whatever it is that you're cooking while you're now in North Carolina.
Yeah. Part of the tradition of yoga music and various other forms of music really is this power of chant. That chant, like mantra and affirmation, is more powerful when it's repeated. In the repetition, it sort of gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And so the chant that I'm going to share with you today is an original chant written by my friend Kayleen Asbo, and these are words that appear in the Gospel of Thomas, which, if you know anything about the Gospel of Thomas, it's thought to be the actual words of J.C. himself, right? Where the Bible talks about is accounts from people many years after his unfortunate demise. The Gospel of Thomas is thought to be his writing, his words, his ideas. And I thought this was beautiful to share with you today.
Oh, fun.
It's called Bring Forth.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite lines. That which you bring forth.
Bring forth what's inside, and it will save you. Bring forth what's inside, and it will light your way. Even the darkness leads to God. Bring forth what's inside of you. Bring forth what's inside, and it will save you. Bring forth what's inside, and it will light your way. Even the darkness leads to God. Bring forth what's inside of you. Bring forth what's inside, and it will save you. Bring forth what's inside, and it will light your way. Even the darkness leads to God. Bring forth what's inside of you.
Well, we wanted to spend the day with you chanting.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. That's
It
beautiful.
took me
pleasure.
right into my heart. So,
It is beautiful. It's so
yeah.
true. Also, the words are absolutely delighting and inspiring.
Yes. Thank you, Joseph.
You're welcome.
Anybody else comments before we do closing remarks? Hello there.
Hi. Hi, Joseph.
Well, hi. I just want to, I'm sorry that I was late in getting in here. There's been a lot going on lately, but
Sure.
I'm glad I've been able to participate. Let's see, Christopher, are you the one that has been facilitating the Reiki messages with me back and forth?
No,
or is that
actually, I'm Kirk. Kirk is,
okay. Is there a
yeah.
guy named Chip?
What's that?
Is there a person named Chip?
Oh, and Chip is our administrator. Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I'm a Reiki 3
Oh, good.
practitioner for many, many years. And I although I'll be moving in a few months back to the Northwest, I wanted to say hello once again and meet you. And what you said was beautiful. And I'm sorry I missed the earlier part, but I relate to it and appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Glad you were
Joseph.
with us.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
And anybody else who wants to check in before we close up for today with Christopher? Okay. So thank you all for being on the call. We do these about once a month now, so we will be doing another one shortly. If there are people that you would love to hear on these calls, also let us know that, because there's an incredible amount of wisdom in our community that we'd love to tap into and get different perspectives from people. So feel free to all of you. Our website is fleshandspirit.org, fleshandspirit.org. And you can,
May I say my own
yeah,
website is lovechristopher.com.
great. And yeah, I was coming
I'm
back,
teaching
back
yoga
to you.
online. I'm teaching yoga online and doing counseling with people online and doing some music. So hit me up if you're interested in connecting here in Winston-Salem.
So do we have it?
I put it up
Great,
in the
great.
chat.
So it's up in the chat. Christopher Love.
Oh no, lovechristopher.com.
Love Christopher. I love that. How that was very genius of you.
Yes.
Yes. Cool. Great. So yeah, so you're doing yoga classes virtually
Every week.
What's that?
Every week.
Every week.
Every week a yoga class.
Great. So wherever you are,
Tuesdays and Thursdays at this point, I'm looking at adding some more classes as we get through this COVID-19 thing.
Yeah.
But I'm online and helping people, and yoga's wonderful. Come practice with me.
Yay. Yeah. What a delight, Christopher, to hear your stories again, to open our hearts together, to hear your voice and to hear your wisdom. And may you and your husband be blessed in your new home.
Yes.
And may you continue to be the one who helps facilitate people out of their shame into freedom and joy and that exuberance that we talked about.
Yay.
Right.
All right, beloved.
Kirk.
Thank you all.
To you and Donny as well.
Thank you. And
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right, we are closing our recording. So good afternoon and good evening to some of you. And we'll see you again.